Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Wars Clone Wars, Season 7. Now, weirdly enough, even though I'm a huge fan of this franchise, I actually don't discuss Star Wars much on this channel. I haven't really done that many videos about it, but I did want to do this one because I did want to talk about Clone Wars because, the season just ended like a few days ago and I finally watched the last remaining episodes, and I've just been in the mood to talk about this ever since it ended because I loved how this show ended. So I'm going to be discussing the season and kind of my overall thoughts on the arcs of the season. I'm also going to be talking about the show a little bit in general, my kind of history with it that I actually really don't have. Because when it comes to Clone Wars, I didn't actually start watching it until January of this year. Because back when the show was first coming out, I was young, I can't remember how old I was, but I was a huge Star Wars fan. I loved the prequels. I grew up with that. I still vividly remember seeing Attack of the Clones in theaters when I was about 5 years old. So I loved the prequel era, but I got to a point where I kind of wanted to explore more of the Star Wars universe, and I just felt like at that point everything was just about the prequels. So like when it was 3 years after Revenge of the Sith came out, and they announced a show about the Clone Wars, I was like, We're past that. We saw how it all ended. Why do we need to go back to that? Also, a little bit of childishness in me is that I loved the Micro series, the 2D animated Clone Wars series that they made. I love that, and I still do. And when they announced that like that wouldn't be canon anymore because of this new show, part of me was like, oh, screw that, Screw you and your like crappy looking CGI animation. I'm gonna stick to my cool looking 2D animated show. And so I never watched Clone Wars, even though throughout the years I kept hearing how good it was. I just, never got into it. And it wasn't until like, I would say a little over a year ago, I was gonna just try to get into it. It was about 2 years ago. And back when the show was still on Netflix, I started watching the first season and just like, I don't know, I couldn't get into it, so I just stopped watching it. And then I was like, you know what, screw it. I've been in the Star Wars mood, like around the time Rise of Skywalker was coming out because I was rewatching the movies. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna jump into it, why not? So in January, I finally started watching the show, and yeah, it's pretty great. I will say that the first couple of seasons are very hit or miss. I wasn't too into it. The first couple seasons of the show, it's really like a really solid kid show with the occasional like great moment in there. I don't know, I couldn't really get into it too much, but as it progressed, the storylines got better and got more and more engaging. What I say about the show is basically what everyone basically says, is that it really enhances the prequel era, and everything that kind of didn't quite work in the prequels works in the show, which I found to be really surprising. Even the political aspect, like that was some of the most boringest stuff in the prequels, was watching all those political debates and stuff. But then there's certain episodes in the show that's all about the politics, about like Padme dealing with all this political stuff, and it was all engaging and really interesting. And yeah, the show kind of like redeemed that era and like really made Anakin out to be a very interesting character. And I love the character of Anakin now, but the thing is, when I think about him, I'm thinking about animated Anakin and not Hayden Christensen Anakin. So I think the show's great. I really like it. Like I said, starts off kind of dodgy, but it gets really better as it goes on, and there's some fantastic Star Wars stuff. It's definitely worth checking out. So going into Season 7, the final season, which is 12 episodes consisting of 3 arcs, each arc consisting of 4 episodes. So the season felt like a lot shorter than it really would, because it really just felt like 4 long episodes. But either way, the first arc being the Bad Batch arc, I really enjoyed. I thought it was a lot of fun. Just a great classic clone trooper arc, which I always loved the clone stuff in the show. Like those arcs that just focus on them is some of the best stuff in the entire show. So having another arc just focus on them was good. It was a lot of fun. I'm not gonna say it's the greatest of like the clone arcs, but it's not bad by any means. There's some amazing stuff in here, especially like action-wise, because I guess one of the positives about the show getting canceled and being revived like 6 years later is that the CGI has improved in that time. And the CGI was still pretty good by the time the show ended originally, but the CGI got even better, and the animation in the show is gorgeous and so cinematic at times, and it's definitely evident in like the action sequences, especially in the Bad Batch arc. There's some really good action sequences in here that are super memorable, especially I love the one, I think it was in the first episode, where they infiltrate like the control room, where they're coming up like the elevator into the control room with all the droids. Like that action sequence was great, and you get a lot more stuff with the character of Rex. And that's great because he is a main part of this season, especially the first and the last arc. He's a huge part of it, so there's a lot more of him in here, and I like that. I liked his journey and trying to find Echo and him finding Echo. All that stuff was good. It was just like a really entertaining, classic style arc. For fans who had been away for a while, it's a great way to ease them back into the show. It's an awesome arc. I don't know, not too much I could really say about it, because there's not a whole lot I have like complaints-wise. And like I said, it's also not the greatest, but it's really fun and awesome. Now we move on to the second arc, the Ahsoka arc. The hate for this arc that it was getting, because I didn't start watching this season until actually about last week. So like they were already on like the second to last episode of the show when I started watching this season. So I had heard like a lot of the complaints and a lot of the criticisms of the Ahsoka arc, and a lot of people just saying about how awful it is. And I think a lot of that's overblown because sure, it's not great by any means, but it was fine. I really don't have a huge problem with it. I think the biggest problem I have with the arc is that like we're in the final season of the show and it's only 12 episodes long, and we're gonna spend 4 of those episodes with Ahsoka and 2 new characters who we just met, and no other characters from the show. And that was a little annoying because I wanted to see more of these characters. I mean, if this season was a longer season, if it was like a full like 22 episode long season, then this arc would have been perfectly fine. It's just that when there's only 12 episodes left and there's only really 3 storylines in the entire season, you're going to spend one of them with this. It just kind of felt a little irrelevant. I know it was some good character building stuff with Ahsoka, definitely, but it just felt kind of like, oh, I want to see what else is going on in the war, you know? Like, the show was such a huge, sprawling show that in its last season, you're just going to have this really small story. It was kind of like, I do think a lot of people's complaints with this arc does come from being longtime fans who have waited to see Ahsoka come back because she left at the end of season 5. She wasn't in any of season 6. And then you had like that 6-year gap in between season 6 and 7. And so this is her big return to the show. And this is all it really was this small story about her like helping out these 2 sisters. So I can see people being annoyed with that, been waiting all these years and this is what they get. Now for me, since I just started watching this show, it had only been about a 2-week gap in between like the end of season 5 and the start of season 7 for me. So I didn't have that huge wait that a lot of people had. So I feel like coming in as a new fan, I wasn't as annoyed as a lot of the fans were who have been waiting for this. So I think that was kind of a benefit for me in that I didn't have that anticipation. But I can understand why some people would be annoyed by that. But like I said, I don't think the arc was terrible. I thought it was like a decent arc. I've seen worse episodes of the Clone Wars. I'll just say that. There were many worse episodes of this show compared to this arc. I really liked Ahsoka's character in this arc. And I like how by the end she really figures out who she really is. Because at the beginning of the arc, you know, she's really disillusioned because, you know, she doesn't trust the Jedi Council. They're not exactly what they seem. So she doesn't really know where her place is. And even when she meets Trace and Rafa, even they also, like, hit it home that the Jedi are not really what they seem. Like, they're kind of jerks when it comes to a lot of things. They're not really what Jedi should be or what people believe the Jedi are. And I like that by the end of the arc, she basically realizes that she really is what a Jedi like should be. You know, she's going around helping people. She's trying to get people out of bad situations. She is what a Jedi truly is compared to what the Jedi have become. And I thought that was really cool. Like by the end of it, like when Trace and Rafa, you know, when they have their respect for her, and even when I forgot what her name is from Mandalore comes in and wants her help. And, you know, they're just like, yeah, go. This is what you're meant to do. Like, she kind of realizes that in this arc. So it is some important character development for Ahsoka. And I really liked all that. That's, I think, is what made the arc worth it in the end, was kind of her character development. And that really leads into the final arc, the Siege of Mandalore / Order 66. And oh my god, I've been thinking about this for the last like 2 days. because I watched the first 2 episodes one day and then I watched the next 2 episodes the next day. They went all out with this. It doesn't feel like a typical Clone Wars episode. It feels like a movie. It feels epic and grand, and like there's this sense of dread throughout the entire thing. There's a lot of weight to everything in this arc, and that to me really shows how much the show's grown from when I was watching the first season. I'm just like, I'm not into this. This is just like a decent kid show, kind of fun little stuff, but I'm not into it. And then I'm watching the last 4 episodes and I'm just sitting forward in my chair just like, oh, okay, oh gee, like watching it like so intently. It just shows how much the show evolved from the earlier seasons to the final season, and it was all so well done. Just from the opening, where it opens with the old school Lucasfilm logo from the pre-special editions, and then when the title bursts in, they used the classic John Williams theme, not the kind of like military march theme that they created for the show. Just when that opened, you knew you were in for something, you know what I mean? Something just crazy and wild. And even then, I feel like they went all out with the animation on this episode, just from the start of it, where there's that big battle on that bridge going on, and then Obi-Wan's introduction where he just like comes in and saves the day, and like there's all that smoke around him as he's just standing there all badass. Like that was great. And then they just kept using the classic John Williams themes throughout. That was fantastic. Seeing Ahsoka and Anakin reunite and have their like final scene together, knowing like what's gonna come after, it was very emotional actually. It was really great. And then of course when like they're in that hangar and the alarm goes off and Obi-Wan runs in, he's just like there's been an attack on Coruscant and Grievous is there, and you're like, oh crap, like it's happening. The fact that this whole arc takes place at the same time as Revenge of the Sith is so clever and just so smart, and just made everything that much more engaging and intense. You know, the action sequences were fantastic, and then when you get to the Maul versus Ahsoka fight, which is like probably the best lightsaber duel in the entire show, mainly because it was actually motion captured, and they got Ray Park, the guy who played Darth Maul in Phantom Menace, to do the motion capture for Maul, so you really feel like it's Darth Maul fighting, and that lightsaber duel was amazing. From the fight choreography to the animation, which was just spectacular, probably the best lightsaber duel I've seen in anything Star Wars like recently. It was just crazy how this lightsaber duel was so engaging, despite the fact that you know like the outcome of it essentially, and that you know like Ahsoka or Maul aren't gonna die because you know they're both in Rebels. It was still intense and super engaging, and I've really grown to like Maul as a character in this show. Like he's really become one of the best villains in this show, to the point where I'm glad they brought him back, which is funny because when they first announced all those years ago they were bringing Maul back, you know, back before I watched the show, I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, of course they're bringing Maul back, because, you know, fan service. Like, I thought they were jumping the shark. What did I know? No, that would come later, would bring him back Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker. But when I saw they were doing that, I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't really care. But watching Maul, like, I think what made it work is that Maul in Phantom Menace didn't really have a character. He was just there to have a cool lightsaber duel, and then he died. So they brought him back to actually, like, make him a character in this universe, and actually, like, something that's worth mentioning other than, oh yeah, he had a cool lightsaber duel. And so it kind of had a good payoff, because he didn't really have a good ending in his movie, you know? Compared to something like Palpatine, who had a great payoff and great ending to his character, and everything was tied up nicely, so bringing him back was unnecessary. This was like the opposite of that. And as the show progressed with this character, I really got into it, and I loved him in his episodes in the final season. I love those episodes of him talking to Ahsoka, like the moment we find out that he's had visions of everything that's gonna happen, and he knows that Skywalker is gonna turn. He's like trying to talk to Ahsoka, just like, I want your help to stop this, because this is nuts, and you know, this is actually a big deal. Like, that was so interesting and made me really more engaged in his character, and I'm glad that they brought him back to life now, even though it was something I thought they shouldn't have done. It really paid off. And then you get to the third episode with the Order 66. My god. Best part is right before that, where Ahsoka has the vision. She hears the Windu and Palpatine fight, and they play the audio from Revenge of the Sith. Like, I thought that was cool, like actually hearing the audio from the movie, and they start off with Hayden Christensen, and then they end it with the voice actor from the show. Great stuff. And then the Order 66 happens, and My god, that was some intense stuff. Intense and emotional too. Seeing how Rex gets overcome by the Order. Like at first he tries fighting it, just crazy, but then he gets overcome by it. Like that was some great stuff. I knew it was gonna happen, but I was just dreading it, and it worked out so well. It was just so well handled. And then the last episode, the series finale, which the series finale works really well as the ending to this arc. I feel like as a series finale, like, you can't really watch it on its own. You can't critique it on its own as the finale of the show. You have to critique it as, you know, the ending of this arc. You have to critique all 4 episodes as the finale of the show, really. Because I felt like the finale was kind of the weakest episode out of the 4. Because it was just the climax of the story. It was, you know, Rex and Ahsoka trying to get off this ship that's crashing down. And that was essentially the episode. Part of me would have liked to have seen a little bit more of like the rest of the galaxy, like handling Order 66. I get it, what they were trying to do, like having to focus on Ahsoka and Rex, and it worked. But there's part of me that would have liked to have seen a little bit more. It's a minor criticism because this show is so like huge, and it expands so much of the world of Star Wars. It wasn't just like a simple story about like Anakin and Obi-Wan, their adventures in the Clone Wars. It's about more than that. So it would have been cool to see the Order 66 affect the rest of the universe that we saw throughout the entirety of the show. So it was kind of like, you know, a little bit of a bummer that the episode just focused on Rex and Ahsoka on the ship. But that being said, what we got was really solid. Darth Maul destroying the hyperdrive inside the ship, basically just destroying the ship from the inside, was insane. It was so cool. Like, seeing that stuff was crazy. And then you get to the ending, which I thought was beautifully done. I love the ending where it's that final moment with Ahsoka after the ship has crashed, and she makes the little like burial for all the clones, and just like the music, just that really somber music, and her dropping the lightsaber. And then we get to the final scene, which cuts like a few years later, that place is now overrun with snow, and you see Darth Vader, and he walks up to the crash site, finds Ahsoka's lightsaber, and walks off. Like, first off, the animation. Awesome. Like, seeing Darth Vader in that animation was great. I love the overhead shot, looking at him looking up, and you have his eyes, like how it's red, like how it looked in like the original movie in A New Hope. And you do see Anakin's eyes inside the mask. And I love that little detail. Like, seeing the red kind of felt like a cool reference to the movie, but then seeing its eye felt like it was so intentional because we followed Anakin throughout this entire show, and that's Anakin right now. And I felt like that was kind of that one glimmer of Anakin inside there. I thought that was a great little like detail there. I thought it was really well done. I love that final scene. I thought it was good. Just like the final scene with Ahsoka, very somber, very just kind of low key, but it was a great way to send off the show and was fantastic. So overall, I really liked season 7. Like I said, you know, the first arc, Bad Batch, was really good. It was really entertaining. The middle half of Ahsoka was okay, but nothing special. And then the last arc was just insanity. Like, the last arc is just like a great Star Wars movie. If you just put those 4 episodes together, you get just a great Star Wars movie. And it was fantastic. It capped off the series perfectly, and just was an end to a really awesome series that just expanded the world of Star Wars. And like, I'm glad I finally decided to watch it. You know, it took me long enough, but I finally watched the show, and I'm really glad I did because I really enjoyed it. The show has its ups and downs. Sometimes I was kind of like, even in the really good seasons, sometimes I was kind of like, you know, I'm not too interested in this. But there's other times where I was just invested in it, and I love seeing the world expanded. It was really well executed and just a lot of fun. I'm just happy to be this excited while talking about Star Wars again. It's been a while. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the Clone Wars Season 7. And until next time, talk to you guys later.